Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to another Sensitive Artist Sunday. My name is SG Tosh. You can call me Sarah. Another week over and a new one just begun. Here we are again. I am, like I said last week, I'm changing a few things about this show. One of them is I didn't pre-schedule it, mostly because I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like there was any real benefit to it. So I'm still going live at 10:30. You can just find me. And I'll be here. If I feel like people are clamoring for like pre-schedule, I'll redo it. But I think I'm going to continue to just basically wing the topic. Because ultimately, even if this show never gets any viewers, this is like basically it's a weekly video diary for me too. So whatever else this might be. So that's how I'm gonna do this. And since it's my video diary, I can do whatever I want. So while I'm sitting here talking to all of anyone who ends up watching this, I'm gonna do a little project that has been sitting on my my desk for like weeks. There's this this black dress. It's like a big, beautiful, long velvet dress with a halter neck. It was actually my mom's back in the 80s. She went as Lydia for Halloween, and my dad went as Beetlejuice. It's great. Maybe I'll find the pictures somewhere. But then in college, I stole this dress from her and I fixed it. I made it the halter. And then at one point, I must have decided I wanted big slits up the side because I cut slits in it up to like, mid thigh. And then later decided I didn't want that, and I sewed them back up, and now I've decided I wanted them again. So I'm going to sit here with my little seam ripper while we talk and get at least part of this done. So before I get too into my little project here, I will start talking about the main topic for this week. And this is another reason why I like winging this, is because this one literally occurred to me this morning / last night. And the reason for that is because I got what I call my alpha feedback on my latest book last night. And just for, your own edification, my husband has been my alpha reader, which is very first reader, if you know your software development code. And he's done that for every single one of my books, both published and the ones that have not made it out to market yet, including this one. So he's the one who gets the roughest copy. It's copy 1.5 is what I call it, which is just like I've done a little bit of revision after the first draft. It's not quite the first draft, but it's pretty close. Because by the time I've written 100,000 words, I'm too close and I need someone else to look at it. And I want it to be someone who's familiar with my work and who I'm going to be able to count on to basically someone I can consistently bug to make sure they get it done on time without me feeling too guilty. So that all happened last night. And I have a tradition. I've had a tradition for when I kind of ingest all of my beta reviews, which is the next step. That's what's going to happen in not too long from now. It'll go to beta. And that is when I get that feedback back, because that's a number of other reviewers, and it's getting very close to the publishing time. So things are heightened. I go into what I call the Grotto of Misery, which is I just take however many full reads I've gotten back. It's usually somewhere between 3 and 5, sometimes more. And I lock myself in a room. In this case, now it's my office. It used to be the basement in my old house, which is why I called it the Grotto, because it's sort of kind of closed in. And I take a glass of wine with me, maybe a bottle, depending on how things go. And I just quick read through all of them. I just scroll through real quick. And I get sort of the gist of it. It's just a way to kind of take the hits quickly. And in a situation where I'm sort of numb, and I can just sort of be like, okay, this is what I'm going to be dealing with. And I don't do anything else when I read beta after that. I take the hits, and then I'm like, okay, I'm usually pretty tipsy by that point. I'm like, all right, that's done. And I put it away. I finish my night out. And then a day to, after like the big problems have a chance to marinate in my head, after I have a chance to write about it, I'll go back and I'll start fixing things. But like the point is, the grotto is for just the misery and the pain, like taking the pain of whatever is going to be the feedback, but not feeling like I have to fix it in that very moment. Alpha, I didn't really have a tradition for it. So I went ahead and I did. I said, I'm going to make dinner. I'll make dinner tonight. He usually cooks because I'm so busy all the time. He's usually the one that does the cooking in our house. And I said, I'll make, a nice dinner. I'll make you something delicious. We'll have some wine. And we'll talk about the book. And that's what we did. And I, in that process, as we were talking, I started thinking about after it was over, I, kind of got circumspect and a little meta and pulled out away from the situation and thought about how different receiving feedback from even him, how different I handled it when I was a younger writer, when I was writing my first books. And, I'll tell you right now, it wasn't good. It was, everyone likes to think that they can take criticism, but we can't, not really. We don't love it, everybody, especially when you're starting out, you just want to hear that your book is great. No notes, definitely going to work. Everything is fantastic and you don't need to change anything. And I think looking back, the reason why that was, especially for me, and I think I sense that it's probably true for most writers, is by the time you've finished writing the book, you're so tired emotionally and like just physically. Weirdly, people don't talk about like the physical toll that writing a book takes. It's not only like emotionally draining, but there's a lot of, it's stressful. You get a lot of, I think you get some cortisol, you get some stress hormones going on. But it's a lot of sitting and it's a lot of stillness and it's a lot of like the whole butt in chair thing, which like I'm writing all the time, no matter what, which is why I always have a notebook or my notes app available. But there is a toll. And by the time you're done with your first draft, you're just so ready to be finished that all you want to hear is it's great. You don't have to go back and do anything else. And that was certainly the case for me. It was, you take that it's an emotional connection and you're emotionally tied to your work. And I think that's especially true of the first draft. Like I've noticed as time goes on that like I'm still sensitive about my books and sensitive about certain things about them. Still, like and I told him this last night, is I would rather you say you hate something than say you were bored by it. Like I would rather elicit the reaction of, oh my God, I hated this. You have to change it or I'm never talking to you again. Than, yeah, this was really, really boring. And I could barely keep my eyes open through it. Like I'd rather you hate something than not care. So that was interesting. But yeah, I think as I was sitting there last night, it was amazing how little of it really hit me in an emotional place anymore. It's not, and I didn't feel really defensive about a lot of it. I had questions about some of his takes. And, I did wonder if there wasn't times when maybe he'd been reading too fast or he missed things, but like, that's all still something that I have to take into account. Like a lot of people read fast, people have big TBRs. So, knowing where he was getting tripped up because something, maybe I glossed over it, and didn't call attention to it, that's still important to know, even if I think I explained it fine. And, I'm sort of thinking about like, how did that change come about? Because I used to really dread getting his feedback. And I still, to some degree, like to push off getting review back whenever possible. It takes me to gear up for the grotto still takes a long time for me. And then I do it and then it's over and it's inevitably like nothing you can't fix. But I'm thinking about like, how did this change come about? And I think it's multiple. There's multiple things that helped. One, just experience, knowing, like, just getting that thicker skin and kind of firming up your hide and just getting used to receiving feedback. I think also picking the right people to give you that feedback is really important. Like, one of my first mistakes that I made, not mistake, like everyone who's ever reviewed my stuff has been wonderful to do so. And they are, great writers in their own right. But one of my missteps, shall we say, for the first series was I had a sci-fi writer review my comedy horror series. And he was able to give, fine technical writing notes, on like line edits and grammar and things like that. But when it came to the genre itself, he was calling out a lot of things that didn't make sense. And that's something that, like, with my husband, like, he doesn't read my genre very often. So I often have to temper his suggestions with, this is a genre thing, or, he's not super heavy into the romance. So I'm like, okay, well, anything you have on that note, like anything you didn't like, I do need to run it through beta. And if they agree with you, then, we'll look at that, because my beta readers are almost all women. And so there's that. It's just being, experience, being more discerning about the people you hand over your early drafts to. Finish one side. And hang on, okay. There. And then it's also just the fact that, like, for the last 6 years, almost every week I've been going to a critique group. Even all through the pandemic. I'm not always putting my stuff through it. But I have, I sit there and I hear the reviews that people get. I am able to learn from the feedback that they're receiving. But I also learn about, what it looks like to take feedback well, and to take feedback in a way that is not helpful. Which is really just pain for its own sake. If you're being very defensive, if you're not listening, if you're so busy trying to get out of doing the work because you're exhausted, it means you're not in a place to really hear what they're telling you. Which means, probably just put the book away for a little bit longer, and try again later. That's what I've learned. About, when I do receive feedback, is like, you need to be in the right place, and you need to have time. I think I said it last week, like, it's easy to be patient when you have time. It's easy to be receptive to that sort of criticism when you're going to have the time to muddle through whatever the problems are and fix them. If you're in a rush, or you feel like, I need this over, or I couldn't possibly take on any more work right now, I just need this done, that's not a good place to be. So that's important. Like, you need to be in the right state of mind to hear and receive that feedback. I also now know what it looks like when it's bad feedback. And what I mean by that is not that, like, they're talking about what's bad in your book. I'm talking about that thing where it's like, you have to consider your source. Like, there are people who are going to not like your book. That's just true. Like, there are people out there who are not going to like your book. They're not going to read your book. That's all fine. You don't want one of those people giving you critique in the early stages, because it's just going to confuse you. And if you find yourself, like, critique groups, you don't get to choose what the genres are. at least in ours, we're a generalist group. So everyone, there's a lot of different people writing in all different genres. So it's up to you to kind of filter what is most, relevant, and if this source is worth listening to. And that goes for positive feedback too. Like if someone says like, oh, I don't normally read romance, but I liked this, there's a number of ways you could take that. But if someone who's like, I do read romance and it was bad, those two things, need to be weighed a little differently. You can decide how you weigh them, but that is the situation. Which brings me to the point of how I now treat positive feedback, because in the past, and I'm talking about the recent past, I'm not talking about when I started out 6 years ago, I was very much like, just give me the negative. I just want to hear what needs to be fixed. And it was very much like, I just want to know how big my to-do list is going to be. Don't bother me with what you liked about the book. I don't care. I just need to know what's broken. And I mean, obviously that's still true to some degree. It's still 80% true, 90% true. Like you don't do feedback. The point of these review processes is to find the weak spots and make improvements. The point of hopefully ARC readers is to feel good about whatever you've written. That's the hope anyway. No guarantees, never any guarantees, but that's where you're looking for your positive reinforcement over the negative stuff, right? Because that's what's going to help you sell. So you go through all of this stuff in the shadows, appropriate. The book is called Death in the Shadows. You go through all of this in the background. So when you get to the public facing stuff, you're not going through it. That being said, it's sort of what I was talking about last week with patience and joy. If, when your patience wears thin, you got to find the joy. If you're finding, this feedback is overwhelming and, it's a lot of negative, there's nothing wrong with hearing the positive too. It's not fully the point of the critique, but it is something that will make the grotto a little bit less miserable. That's what I've found anyway. So I, last night when me and my husband were talking through Alpha, I waited until the end. I wanted to hear all of the stuff that he, had to say. I wanted to ask my questions. I wanted to talk about, what kind of work is going to be in front of me in the next week or so. And then at the end, I was like, well, what did you like about it? And he had a very, nice handful of things to say. And he even said like, well, I wasn't really going through it for stuff I liked. I was specifically going through it for the problems. And he, even just saying like, I still love the characters, the story for the problems that it has and the fixes that, you'll make, which I will make them. I loved, it was a fun read and I enjoyed it. Even that is something to get you through. Or, like, I really loved this exchange. I really loved this dynamic. All of these things. The magic was cool. The new intrigue was great. That stuff is not the point of the review, and I'm not going to let any of those comments overshadow what needs to be fixed. I can't just say, oh, well, he liked the book, so all this other problems doesn't matter. Like, those are still things that need to be addressed, but it's much easier to address them when you have some positive feedback to hold on to as well. So that's another thing that's changed, is not being quite so dismissive of the things that I did that are good, because you don't want to lose those. And if you get too bogged down in the negative, you might end up throwing out something that's really, really good. And then the last thing that I was thinking about is when, if you get an alpha or a beta back and they have absolutely no notes, everything was perfect, this is good to go, like, that's great. But it also is a missed opportunity. And I'll give you an example. This will probably be the last thing I talk about before we head off on our Sundays, or whatever day you're watching this. There was a scene that he had a big problem with. My books tend to kind of start slow and then ramp up. This one I thought was a little bit better. He said it still had some pacing issues in the beginning, and I will look at that as I always do, because that is my MO, is to start kind of slow. So that aside, one of the scenes in the beginning that he had such a problem with, he said one of the characters that I'd written, who I really like, he's another magic user. He's got kind of a sort of antiquated magic that's been outpaced, and sort of technology has taken over what he used to do. He's in the story, and he plays a pivotal role in getting a essential piece of evidence, a reveal. Basically, he helps the story along. He reveals something. He helps them find a piece of information that helps them get one step further along in the story. And I really loved that. But the problem was, he's a new character that is introduced in one scene, and though he is thematically relevant to the story, it takes a long time to introduce his magic and introduce him, and then he goes and he's gone. And the scene's like fine. Even, my husband said the scene is good. It just slows down the plot. And do you really need it? And I'm thinking about, like, yeah, he's right. A lot of the stuff also, now that I've been doing this a while, like, I kind of know where things might get flagged by reviewers. Like, sometimes I get surprised and it's like, oh, I never thought about that. That is kind of a problem. And that's why I do these. But like, some of the times it's a lot of the times now it's confirming what I kind of already know is going to be a problem. It's just, I need someone else to say it because I'm too close. And when you get to the end of revision, everything looks like a problem because you're terrified of putting this book out there, and you're just like, I want to fix all of it. And beta is heavily like, is this really a problem still, or am I just being nuts? And if they come back with, yeah, it is, then it's like, okay, yeah, it probably is. So I sort of knew that this was coming, but I also didn't know how to fix it. And my first response was, okay, well, I can't get rid of the scene because the information that's revealed in it is essential. So the scene has to happen. And then it was like, well, maybe I can just kind of cut down the interaction. Maybe I can, punch it up a little bit, make it a little bit funnier, change some stuff around, change some of the dynamics of the people in the room, make it a little bit more lively. And then this morning, like 2 hours ago, my husband says, well, what about, if you haven't read the books, you won't know what this means. But he says, what about, actually, I won't do it because it's a spoiler. What about introducing, why don't you just have one of the other characters who's been in previous books, but isn't in this book as of yet? Why don't you just have them do this? Because then we already know who they are. They're already a magical operator. And I was sort of like, well, that doesn't work because, and I was like, well, maybe it does work. And then I got on like this whole train of thought of like, oh my God, that would actually, I eventually came around to like, not only is that a much quicker solution to, getting this, it's obviously a pretty big rewrite of the scene, but like, it'll get us to the relevant information faster. Not only that, but by introducing this particular character, it's going to make that scene so much more entertaining. And I'll leave it there. But like, that's the kind of thing that can come out of these kind of reviews, is like, even if you get a feedback, a note of like, this scene really doesn't work, it's boring, which is again, like a knife to the heart for me personally. And you need to do something about it because it's dragging your whole first half of the book down. Like, that's bad. That's bad feedback, but it's not, it's not the end of the world. It's an opportunity. It's a door to making it ultimately a better scene. All you have to do is have the time to actually make that change. And then the trust in yourself that you're going to be able to do that. You're going to fix it. It might not be perfect right now, but it probably will never be perfect. But you can do this. You are going to make this better, even if it requires a big change. And I think that was sort of missing for me in early days. Is like I was, one, if you're exhausted and you're out of time or you're like haggard, you don't want to hear that you need to rewrite a whole scene. So you need to be in the right mental space for that. But like I wasn't like in early days, it was more, oh my God, I have to do this, as opposed to being like, okay, this is an opportunity to do something outside the box and maybe think a little bit, get out of the plot that I had and try to rework it. Whereas, in the past, it was like, this is the plot, I'm not changing it. So that's changed. And that is definitely a shift in maturity, which is funny because, you never stop learning. You really don't ever stop learning. And I feel glad, that I don't make it, it's not a secret that I'm, still working my career up to where I want it to be, but it is nice to be able to say like, I have come to a distance. So that was pretty good. So that's my thoughts about, how to take critique and how things have changed. And if you're looking for, some takeaways for this, when you're looking at doing reviews of your own, make sure you choose the right people, people who are going to be people who know what they're talking about, first of all, people who at least read in your genre, if not write in it. Readers are typically actually better because they know from a like user perspective as opposed to a maker's perspective what they want. Consider the source when you're getting your feedback. If you're getting kind of indiscriminate feedback, that's important. Make sure you're in a place to hear it without being so exhausted or burnt out from the process, or just wanting it to be done so badly that you just can't listen to anyone saying you have to do anything more to this friggin' story because you're going to freak out, and that's not a place to be. And then trust yourself. Trust that any problems that come up, you're going to be able to fix, because you will. It's your story and you can fix them. You just need the time, the information, and the right headspace to do it. So that's my advice on the best way to take critique from someone who's been doing it for about 6 years now. It is tough in the beginning, and you're gonna have to remind yourself of these things. Like if you find yourself getting really, really riled by some critique, stop yourself, consider, is this a source I need to listen to? And if it is, maybe I'm not in the right place to hear this right now and I need to step away for a little bit. And then I'll come back to whatever this feedback is later when I have time. So that is it. Thank you all for watching this. I have finished my little project here. So that was fun. One other thing done for this Sunday. Maybe I'll post a picture of it on at some point. We'll see. Yes. If this has been useful, please like the video, follow the channel, share with your friends, blah, 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 all that stuff. And we will see you next week. Have a good Memorial Day. That's right. So you will have tomorrow off too.